G'day, I'm George Christensen, editor of Nation First, here with the fantastic member for Flynn, Colin Boyce. Colin, unlike a lot of the other Liberal National Coalition MPs, was actually elected with a significant swing towards him at the last election. That's when just about everyone else went backwards. So, you know, we can look at all the problems that happened with the Liberal National Coalition, but sometimes it's interesting to look at what went right and find out what solutions there could be for the party in the future. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for the cuppa, by the way, too, Colin. This cold Canberra morning. Mate, congratulations on your election now many moons ago, but you were one of those that defied the odds. You had a significant two-party preferred swing towards you. What was it again, mate?
6.4%.
And what did the coalition go back overall, do you recall?
Well, it was nearly -5 across the board on an average. Yeah.
-5. So you defied that -5 and got a 6+% swing towards you. So you could say, you know, almost 12%, given the fact that everyone went backwards 5%, or just about went backwards 5%. What do you chalk that down to?
Well, George, it's rather interesting to analyse why that happened. And as I've said to the people doing the inquiries into the election cycle and what went wrong and so forth, I've said to them, why don't you concentrate on what went right and try and analyse that and try and duplicate it? The Flynn electorate and the election result was quite interesting, I think. And the reason for that is that Gladstone in particular, which is the capital of the Flynn electorate, if you like, it is one of the large industrial economic generators in Australia. The port of Gladstone is the largest multi-commodity shipping port in Australia. Yep. It's got the 4th largest coal exporting terminal in the world. The CSG gas industry at Curtis Island, which is the largest gas facility on the east coast of Australia. There's obviously the alumina sector there with 2 refineries and the smelter, the largest cement kiln in Australia. We've got various heavy industries and power generation sector. There's 3 coal-fired power stations in the electorate. All the shipping, the railways and associated industries. And it is traditionally a Labor Party
working class area.
It traditionally votes, 63, 4, 5% Labor Party. That's what history shows us. In this last federal election cycle, we've turned that around and we've actually won the pre-poll at Gladstone, which has never happened before. We've won various voting electoral booths, Boyne Tenham, for an example, where the smelter is, and various other ones around Gladstone. You look at that and you got to ask the question, if there was such a sentiment of, red Labor Party vote across the wider electorates in Australia, why didn't that happen at Gladstone?
To be clear, you're saying these normally red-hot Labor voting areas swung to you.
Correct.
In a federal election where traditional Liberal voters swung away from the Liberal Party and the National Party in some areas and parked their vote with Labor. So
exactly. So I would argue there's a number of reasons for it, and I think the voting demographic is changing. The traditional blue-collar worker that's involved in, the mining and resource sector and heavy industry and power generation sectors and so forth, the central Queensland coalfields, etc., they are, as I say, traditional Labor Party voters, but I think that demographic is definitely swinging back towards the conservative side of politics.
So this is a very interesting thing, and this is something that Senator Canavan and I, when I was in the Nationals Party room, used to talk about, and I still think is a real thing happening. You've got these the rise of the Teals, because they're in blue ribbon Liberal Party seats, but they're really green, so that's where the Teal name comes from. But they're in the ascendancy, and they have taken what the Liberals refer to as their jewels in the crown, the seats that they always held, the blue ribbon seats. You could name them Kooyong,
Wentworth, all of those, yes.
North Sydney, Warringah, these sort of seats that traditionally were where the Liberal Party leadership come from,
Yes.
And so the uber wealthy, that's what they are, uber wealthy seats, some of the richest people in this country are going over to the dark side, and yet we've got working class people in seats like yours that are saying, hey, Labor no longer represents me, we're better off parking our votes on the right because we can see how that can benefit us. So that realignment is happening. It is real. I mean, your seat is proof of it. But has that permeated the thinking in the Liberal National Coalition yet?
Well, unfortunately not. And so if you just let me extrapolate what I think happened in the Flynn election cycle. I think all of those traditional blue-collar workers are beginning to understand that every time the Prime Minister, comes to Central Queensland, Gladstone in particular, Mr Bowen, the Energy Minister and so forth, every time they mention transition or wind turbines or solar panels or green hydrogen or any of those associated arguments, all of these blue-collar workers are starting to understand that is going to undermine their prosperity and their futures in terms of their highly paid and highly skilled jobs in those sectors. Mm-hmm. Everybody in Central Queensland understands that you cannot run the alumina smelter on wind turbines and solar panels and batteries. It just simply will not work. You cannot run the electric train system in Central Queensland that delivers 70 million tonnes of coal to the port of Gladstone. It's just ludicrous. Every day I'm in Gladstone, I sit on my apartment on my veranda, which overlooks the harbour, and we watch the coal boats and the gas boats come in and out, taking all of that energy commodity elsewhere in the world, China, near Asia, Japan, India, so forth. And everybody knows the staggering hypocrisy of the arguments in respect to all of this net zero and emissions targets and we can't use these commodities ourselves, and we're shutting down our coal-fired power generation fleet and we're demonising the use of gas. Yet here we are, we're quite happy to export it overseas to other countries. And what do people think happens to that?
Yeah.
I can tell you what happens to it. It goes into a blast furnace or a coal-fired power station to generate heat, to create energy, whatever the case, to build any and all number of consumer products that all find their way back to Australia in a container somehow. Mm-hmm. So what we're actually doing is exporting our manufacturing and business capability offshore. Mm-hmm. And people are starting to understand that, particularly in central Queensland, I think, the greater Flynn electorate, where we are one of the big economic generators for the Australian economy through the mining and resource sector, heavy industry, the gas, the coal, the alumina, the cement, and everything else combined. So I think that has clearly showed in the electorate cycle. I have always been very firm on my stand on where I sit on these things. And I think whilst people possibly might not agree, they appreciate the fact that they know where you are politically on these things. You don't walk around the subjects. You don't stand in the middle of the road. It's a firm belief that the road we're heading down is just economic self-harm.
So what you're saying is that there would not have been too many folks switched on in Flynn that would not have known that Colin Boyce was against net zero.
Everybody knows where I sit on those issues, and I'm due to speak on Barnaby Joyce's abandoned net zero bill on Monday. Again, it's all a question of economics for me. How much will this cost our economy? I think that whole issue of net zero and so forth gets tied to the whole climate change debate. And of course, as soon as you want to talk about net zero, they brand you as the climate change denier. And nobody is denying climate change. Climate change is real, and climate change has been happening since the dawn of time. Thursday afternoon, 37 billion years ago, when the planet was first formed. And climate change will still happen.
2 a.m. this morning here in Canberra, it was 3 degrees, and now it's probably about 10. So
100%. So for me, net zero and these emissions targets, 43% by 2030, or 43% reduction by 2030, 82% renewable energy by 2030, and indeed net zero by 2050 and 100% renewable energy. Well, I want to know what it is going to cost Australia in terms of economics, and that's what I base my arguments on. To date, nobody can answer those questions, nor will they. We see any and all number of reports coming out by lobbyists and so forth that are funded by these billionaire people in support of net zero, in support of emissions targets, and it's all about money for them. The whole thing is predicated on how much money they can make via taxpayer subsidies and taxpayer funds. The capacity investment scheme, for an example, the safeguard mechanism, which is a cost impost, it's basically carbon tax. And now we've got the smelting industry in Australia that's got its hand out to the government for billions of dollars in subsidies to remain economically viable. People have got to understand what is happening. We have lost our plastics industry. We have lost the fertiliser industry. We've lost the glass industry. We're about to lose the copper industry, and I can assure you the alumina sector's not far behind it. So for me, if people want to have these industries in Australia that employ thousands of people, employ tens of thousands of people indirectly, we have got to be able to provide them with reliable and affordable energy. Otherwise, the economics just simply doesn't work.
So you had basically the LNP, the state division of both the Liberal and National parties in Queensland, where we're from, vote the other weekend to basically say they don't support net zero. You've had other divisions of the Liberal Party and National Party, I think, other states that have voted the same way. Let me ask you two questions. One, do you think that the National Party here federally, the Parliamentary National Party, will take a firm view that they are not supporting net zero? And if so, when? And do you think that the Coalition will go the same way?
Well, that's an interesting question, and to date we have not had those discussions formally. Obviously, there's a lot of...
But David Littleproud supported your leader supported the motion in Brisbane. That would obviously mean
100%. So right? You're absolutely right. So the LNP conference very recently voted overwhelmingly to dump net zero, as has... conservative political bodies in New South Wales, South Australia, Western Australia and the Northern Territory. The only two states, Victoria and Tasmania, have not made any indications in that space. But to get to both the Nationals Party room and to the Liberal Party room, those discussions have not been done formally. So nobody's actually said, yes, we do, or no, we don't. It's all supposed to be under review, as they tell us. But For me, it's a line in the sand, and obviously I've got some supporters, Barnaby Joyce among them, Lou O'Brien, Michael McCormack, Matt Canavan, of course, who, the time is up. We have got to start understanding the economic self-harm that is being imposed on Australia and the Australian economy in respect to supporting these outrageous ideas that you can reach these emissions targets and it won't cost people. Because the simple fact of the matter, it is. Have a look at your power bill. Everybody's power bill is going up. It is not coming down. And this idea that renewable energy is the cheapest form of energy is absolute nonsense. Mr. Bowen continually argues that it is the cheapest form of energy, and what he looks at is the wholesale price of electricity. But the consumer doesn't pay wholesale price, they pay retail price. And when you include the cost of transmission lines, the cost of the synchronisers, the cost of network charges and so forth, that is what is driving up the price of electricity. Every time they build another transmission line or this infrastructure that's required to hook up the renewable sector, the consumer pays more. With the mandates for renewables, the RET subsidies, the capacity investment scheme, which is basically a scheme invented by the government to ask the Australian taxpayer to underwrite a minimum profitability for these multinational corporations to guarantee them a return. Nobody can tell us how much it's going to cost.
So, final question. Colin Boyce, the man who scored a 6+% swing towards him, an election where everyone went back over 5% in the Liberal National Coalition, well, on average, is the key to winning or significantly moving forward towards a win at the next election, saying quite clearly the coalition is against net zero and the coalition is for cheaper power for Australians?
I believe so. That has always been my position. Whether we actually get to that or not is unknown at this point in time. As a party conservative group, there is most definitely a concerted effort to arrive at that destination amongst some of the colleagues. Whether we actually get there and win the day is another question entirely. I think politically, conservative politics has to prosecute the economics of all of these emissions targets and net zero and so forth, and you have to have a point of difference economically. Otherwise, the wider public sees status quo and they vote accordingly.
Well, thank you very much, Colin, for your insights, and here's hoping that the Liberal National Coalition see the light that you're seeing.
Well, yes, I hope so, George, and it remains to be seen where we go in the near future, but it will be interesting to see the media comment and political comment in respect to Barnaby Joyce's abandoned net zero bill and see where that ends up at the end of the day.
Certainly will. Thanks very much.
You're welcome, George.